Welcome to my guide on how to change the text in Sega Genesis games. Unlike my color palette tutorial, this video is going to be rather short since I don't really have to explain much on how to use this program. However, do keep in mind that this tutorial is using a very old program, so you won't be able to change all of the text in the Sega Genesis game. With that being said, let's get straight into it. Now to do this, you would need 4 things. First off, you would need DOSBox. We'll be using this in order to open the program. Then we will need the program itself, which is called TEXTCRK or TEXTCRK. Third, you're going to need some games. Now, for this tutorial, I have Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Slaughter Sport, and Zero Wing. Excuse me. And Zero Wing. Fourth, you need some kind of emulator. It could be Fusion, it could be whatever you want really. As long as you can pause at any point in the game, then the emulator is fine. And lastly, you need Notepad. We're going to be using this in order to take notes and to type the text we see in game so we can remember it for the program. With that being said, let's get on to the first step. First thing we want to do is change the name of the game, or rather the extension. So what you want to do is, I have these 3 games right here, and I'm going to rename all of them and also change the extension. As you can see right now it's called MD, which is Mega Drive. So for Mean Bean Machine, I'm going to rename it to DRM1, and then I'm going to change the extension to bin. And if you get this, you can hit yes. Deathless Slaughter Sport, I'm going to rename it to SS1, then change the extension to bin. And the reason why I'm pinning a 1 at the end of each abbreviation, you'll see in a bit. And for Zero Wing, I'll just name it ZW1 and change the end to bin. So now that we have our bin files, we need to move these and put them in the same place as the TEXTCRK.exe. So as you can see, they're all here. Let's go to properties to make sure all of these is checked off, everything looks good here, so we're good to go. So now that we got the games, we can go into the second step. Now we're going to go into the actual game to find the quote we're looking for. So this example is going to be Mean Bean Machine, and we're going to get our notes ready. And we're going to open the game with Fusion. Again, any emulator works as long as it can open .bin and it can pause at any time. So let's open the game. Let's fast forward a little bit, and the line I want to change is this guy's right here. Now he has 3 lines, but for this example I'm going to change the first one. So, beans, let me give you a hand or 2. There is 3 important rules when it comes to text editing with this program, because it is a pretty outdated program, so you do have to follow them. First off, when I type this in, you see where it says U and A? There will be times like this example where the U and A has to be together. If you space it out and try to search for it in the TEXTCRK, it won't find it at all. So in this case, I actually have to put these 2 together since it's a new line. So UA, and then space, hand, or 2, period. And this is the line we're going to look for when we go into TEXTCRK. Now the second important rule, let's say I'm typing a bunch of A's or whatever, and then right after this last period I start typing Q. These Q's won't appear in game if you try to add it to the quote. This is the character, letter, number, whatever you want to call it. This is the limit, and going past it will not do anything. These Q's will not pop up if I try to add it in. So when making a quote, make sure it's the same numbers and letters as the quote you're trying to edit. Now the third important rule, let's do this again. I'm going to type all A's. I'm going to stop like right here. I'm going to type awesome. Now as you see here, right after the U, there's an A, a new line breaks. And I typed awesome, but because this A is right here, like this is a new line, it will say AWE right here, and then say SOME in the second line. So always keep in mind of line breaks whenever you're making a quote. Now that I explained the rules, let's actually make a quote. So Zachary was a really cool guy, you know. Now, of course, like I mentioned earlier, this is a line break, the U and the A. So this, where it says cooling guy, I actually have to backspace here and make sure it's not spaced out. So this is the line we're going to add right here. And now we go into the next step, which is actually changing this original line into the one we have edited. For now, let's close out Fusion, and now we're going to go back to TEXTCRK. Now, like I mentioned, you need DOSBox in order to run this program. If you try to open it normally, you would get this. This app can't run on your PC. So what you have to do is actually drag this program onto DOSBox, and it will open. And as you see, you will get this brief description. TEXTCRK will search through a file and replace a string of text with another. And then you get a template which says TEXTCRK, input file, output file, search for this, change to this. So what this means is, and I'll go along, you want to start by typing TEXTCRK space. The input file is the one we're trying to change, so drm.bin. So drm1.bin. Make sure it's the same casing and make sure you add the extension. Now space, we're going to make a new file and let's call it drm2.bin. This is the one we're making that's going to have the edited quote. Now space, it says search for this, so this is the quote we're looking for. And when it comes to words, like let's say I'm looking for out, you just type it like that. But because this is a quote, we actually have to start with quotes. So let's cancel that out. Start with quotes and beans, let me give you a hand or two. Period, close quotes. Now let's add the one we just made. Zachary 121 is look, I swear I'm not narcissistic, alright? Is a really cool guy, you know. And of course I picked cool guy together because that's where the line breaks in the game. Almost made a spelling error. Now I'm going to close quotes and you can press enter. So now I'll start searching for the address. As you can see here, a number popped up and that means it was successful in finding the line that we was looking for. And now we just have to wait for this to finish, and after it says end of code or end of line, that means it's done and we can move on into opening DRM2 to see if it actually changed anything. So now I've finished and it actually says end of file, so we can close DOSBox and open Fusion, and now let's see if it worked. DRM2, that's the one we actually changed, that's the output file. I forgot to mention about the fact that after you do an edit, it changes the checksum and you get a checksum error if you try to run the ROM. And the reason why I don't get a checksum error in the video is because in the Fusion emulator, when you go to options and go to set config, you can see right here when I go to Genesis that on the bottom it says auto fix checksums. Now, if your emulator doesn't do this, I'll leave a link in the description below for a program that will fix a checksum of your ROM. Anyhow, let's get back into the video. And we're going to go into the very first quote of the game, which is the one we changed. So as you can see, it came out the way we wanted it to. There's like no errors, there's no spaces, and it fit the quote limit, and we got exactly what we wanted. So from here, if you know how to do this, you can pretty much keep going with the other quotes in the game, like this one. Like, you know, type it in the same way. So, example, I've to prepare Dr. Space Robotnik. And of course, because there's a line break, we have to put the A right next to Robotnik. Robotnika. A beautiful bean feast. And you keep going from there, and there you go. That's pretty much how you edit text in Genesis games. Now, I could technically stop here, But there's one very important example of how it can be a little complicated to change text, and I'm going to get into that right now with Slaughter Sport. Now, I should mention before we get into Slaughter Sport that, let's say I go back into TEXTCRK by dragging it to DOSBox, and if I want to edit another quote from the already edited one I have, you can delete the old one if you want, and then rename this one to 1.bin, because it was successful, so we can work from here. And you don't have to capitalize the extension, it will still work either way. So, Slaughter Sport. Before we even get into DOSBox, let's actually open the game and look for the quote we're looking for. Genesis. By the way, don't play this game, it sucks so much. But I don't need to tell you that. So now I'm going to pick the characters, and I need to talk about this really quickly. Zap. It says launch energy ball. This is a lie. What this actually does is increase the range of your attacks, and even the manual says this. I don't know why they said launch energy ball in the game, but whatever. Let's actually do the developer's job and put an accurate description. So, we're going to type this right here, but I'm a little concerned because I have a feeling there's a lot of spaces here and then it breaks a line, because I'm comparing it to the one right here with no jump where it says board with spike stops all jumps. So, but again, let's just test it out first to see if I'm right or wrong. So I'll type it as it is. Launch energy ball. Now I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to get this one as well. Board with spikes stops all jumps. And there's no period here, so I don't have to add one, otherwise I won't find it. Like I said, it has to be very specific. I added a space between spikes and stops because I have already done this, and if I didn't space spikes and stops, I actually can't find it. So just like I previously mentioned in the Mean Bean Machine, there's times where you might have to space it like here, and there's times where you don't. For this case, we do have to space these two words right here. So we have these two lines, let's look for them. I'm going to close out Fusion, and I'm going to drag TEXTCRK into DOSBox, and then bring the notepad up here. TEXTCRK, the input is SS1, so let's do SS1.bin, the output will be SS2.bin, and the line we're looking for, which is in quotes, is launch energy ball, period, close. And let's keep it simple, and let's replace it with range increase. So now I try to search for it, but like I said earlier, I was a little concerned because it looks like there's a lot of spaces after launch and end of fire where I actually didn't find anything. The reason is because there is a lot of spaces after launch, but how do we find out how many spaces? Well, that's where the second line comes into play, and I'll get into that right now. Now, as you can see here, after where it says stops, this is where the second line starts. So all we really need to do is go to where we typed launch energy ball and keep spacing until this E matches this S, because that's where the new line starts, and that's where this line starts right here. So let's do that. In fact, I'm going to put these two words together by backspacing here, and I'm going to count out the amount of spaces it takes to get to S. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So maybe type that in before I forget, just in case. 12 spaces after launch. So it took 12 spaces for the new line to start right here. And now that we know this, we can actually edit this code. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's press enter. And how can I word this? Let's put increase. Let's keep spacing until we get to where it says energy. and I'm gonna put attack range. Now, I went too fast actually, because what I'm supposed to do is also count how many spaces it takes after increase. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Attack range. And again, this is the limit of this quote, so I can't even put a period after this, otherwise that period won't pop up at all. So I'm going to put 10 spaces after increase. And this is the edited quote, so let's get into that right now. Now the SS2 did fail, so we can delete that. And we can start from fresh, so let's go to TEXTCRK, drag it to DOSBox. And now let's do it again. So TEXTCRK space ss1.bin space ss2.bin space. Again, if it's a quote like this, you want to start with quotes. Launch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Energy ball. Close quotes. And then you start a new one after spacing. Increase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Attack range. And again, I can't add a period. It won't pop up in the game even if I tried to, so I'll leave it like this to prevent anything from happening. Close quotes and enter. So now I was searching for it, and as you can see, we actually found the launch energy ball. So my theory was somewhat correct when I said there was a lot of spaces after launch energy ball. So now I was going to replace it. It just finished, and now we're going to see if it worked by opening ss2.bin. So load Genesis, open ss2, go to 2-player, and as you can see, it worked out pretty well. It says increase attack range, which is the real description of this item. So hopefully I made a clear point on how it can be a bit difficult to change some text. A last thing I should mention, unless I already mentioned it earlier, is that there's some text you can't change at all. Like I tried changing like Rex's name with all caps and everything, and the game couldn't find it at all. Which leads me to believe that these letters are coming from some kind of palette. I don't really have a clear explanation for it, but you won't be able to change all text of any game. But most importantly, we was able to change this text, so it does indeed work, just not with everything. Now for the case of Zero Wing, I actually couldn't find a way to change the text for the intro. So let me show an example. I'm going to open the game with Fusion. Going to click on Zero Wing. Let's take the sound for now. Let's wait for when it says war was beginning. So yeah, if you don't know, this game has a really legendary intro. So let's type that in with all caps, period, and let's change this to war has started. Okay, cool. So we're gonna close the game. TEXTCRK, drag to DOSBox, and now we're going to look for that text. So TEXTCRK space ZW1, that's the name of our game. .bin, and then the new one will be called ZW2.bin, and we're going to replace war was beginning period end and change it to war has started. And I would try to search for it, and it actually doesn't find it at all. And I tried many things. I tried to lowercase it, maybe add a space. I even tried some of the other quotes that's actually in that intro, and I could not change it whatsoever. Now, there is a small chance it could be me, but from the tries I took, I just could not change it. If you could somehow change it, please let me know. But yeah, in the case of games like Zero Wing, you are unable to change any of the text in the intro. And this shows how, just like Slaughter Sport, how games can be pretty different and you won't be able to edit all of the text that you want to edit. Especially since this program, like I said, is really old and, dare I say, outdated. That's it for my tutorial of editing text in Genesis games. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something from it, and again, it's not too complicated to do, and you won't be able to change everything, but maybe you might be able to find some use out of this program. With that being said, I'll see you later. This video is going to be rather short since I don't really have to explain much on how to use this program.